Is this really where you think you belong? As we sat in the restaurant, the perfume of the sumptuous food in front of us polluted by my mother-in-law's contempt. Her comments cut through the air. "You're not blood," she said, smirking. "You're just a daughter-in-law." With a dismissive sweep of her hand, she seemed to be inviting him to go. My hands shook as I pulled back my chair to stand, anger pulsing through me. However, she stopped me with a raised hand before I could leave the room. "Hold on. How about the bill?" With a smug look on her face, she commanded. "Leave the money if you're leaving early." I smiled defiantly as I met her gaze. Why would I cover someone else's expenses? My name is Maya, and I'm a 29-year-old office worker. I shot back. Except for one recurring issue, my controlling mother-in-law, my husband Tyrell and I were happy in our marriage. She intruded into our lives, living close by, and criticized my ability to cook and take care of the house. She would show up unannounced and point out every issue while feigning to be a worried mother. Tyrell didn't believe me when I told him. He saw his mother as a devoted parent who was oblivious to her deceit. Her invasions worsened with time. She would enter our house with a key that my husband had given her and moan about everything while critiquing it. She even distributed false information about me, damaging my reputation with the neighbors. Tyrell remained uninterested and preoccupied with his job despite my entreaties for him to relocate. Then came a pivotal moment. He was promoted and received a sizable pay raise as a result of his successful endeavor. Taking advantage of the situation, I proposed growing our family. Maybe it's time to consider starting a family now that our income has increased. I made the proposal in the hopes that this constructive shift would help him see his mother's poisonous influence. I thought it was a fantastic concept, but I would rather live in a location that is more kid-friendly if we are thinking about starting a family. There aren't many childcare facilities in this area, and there aren't any parks where kids can play. We need to move, don't we? My spouse finally responded favorably to the idea of moving, which made me happier than hearing about his promotion. But that sensation was short-lived. As usual, my mother-in-law showed up without warning the following day. I assumed she had come to nag once more, and I was tired. This time, though, something appeared different. I've made reservations at a restaurant because I want to celebrate my son's promotion. Although it's a highly pricey establishment, the cuisine is excellent. The service has a great attitude, and the setting is gorgeous. When she invited me to join, she stated, "It has a great word-of-mouth reputation." "That's good. Good for you," I said, attempting to be courteous, but I remained as inhospitable as ever. "Oh well, whatever. I would like you to visit this restaurant as well. Come, please." I added that it's probably not possible, but I'll check my schedule. "Don't say that." She emphasized that we would be waiting for you. I gave that response, but she simply grinned and walked away. She had been keeping me out until now, but suddenly she was welcoming me and promising to wait. Something must be happening. My husband told me that he had previously informed his mother that we would go together when he got home. He was looking forward to the meal at the restaurant she had planned for us. "Maya, don't you feel the same way?" he inquired. "I'm not looking forward to it. I'm sorry. At a restaurant this pricey, I have no idea how much it will cost. I'd rather not go. Simply say, I have urgent business, and have fun," I answered, feeling uneasy about the circumstance. "What's causing your bad thoughts? Furthermore, we are not the only ones attending the restaurant. My brothers will also be bringing their spouses." My husband, who was thrilled to be going to a posh restaurant for the first time, stressed that it would be horrible if you didn't bring the entire family. Despite my reluctance, I felt obliged to comply. My husband could no longer hear what I was saying. I made the decision to record my mother-in-law's harassment using a voice recorder I purchased online in case he trusted her more than I did. Most likely, she also intended to torment me during the celebration. My spouse would listen to her voice on tape. I would get a divorce from him if he continued to protect her. I felt somewhat better after making that choice. I continued to moan, though, because the day I had to meet my mother-in-law at the restaurant was gloomy. Having only met my husband's brothers at the wedding, I barely knew them, and I couldn't recall ever exchanging pleasantries with their spouses. The waiter escorted us to a spacious room at the restaurant, where my mother-in-law, the other son and his spouse. And the third son and his spouse were already seated. There was just one empty seat. And the table was already covered with the sumptuous meal. My spouse cocked his head in perplexity. Was the quantity of suits a mistake on the part of the waiter? He asked out loud. I will go inquire. He said. Everyone start eating. And walked out of the room. My mother-in-law got to her feet the instant he left. A scowl twisting her face. No seat is available for you. Why should I have a family celebration for a stranger who recently married my son? Her words were oozing with contempt. I'll give you an option. Then, you may either be genuine and become a member of my family. Or you can walk away and never look at me again. Decision now. Was leaving. Mother-in-law became a little agitated. In this case, I would ask her to accept me as family? To the conclusion, you pay the full amount due here. And become family. You must be annoyed at being treated like a stranger. Told you. Expense for someone else's family? I turned away from her and shot back. The mother-in-law yelled and slammed the table. Want to adopt you as a family. Do you feel comfortable being a stranger? Make a payment. No, I don't mind being unknown. I won't cover the cost of your supper because I'm a stranger. Farewell. My mother-in-law followed me. But I had already left the restaurant by the time she arrived at the room's entrance from the farthest seat. I thought I would email my husband when I got home. But he came back in 10 minutes. According to the server, my mom was making a big deal and the reservation number was correct. My brother told me about the incident. I apologize for hurting your feelings. You made a speedy return. He said. The wives of the eldest and third sons appeared to have taken offense at my assertion that I was okay with being a stranger. They had previously believed that the only way to deal with harassment was to endure it in silence. But after witnessing my response, they realized they could do it too. Their momentum carried them both away. And our husbands, the third and eldest sons, hastily followed. I was prepared for my mother-in-law to complain. And sure enough, the phone began ringing non-stop within 3 hours. I banned the calls since it was so annoying. Nevertheless, one call from an unidentified number was successful. Hi, I apologize for the late call. Could this be Maya's cell phone? The man on the other end introduced himself as a member of the local police force. He told me that my mother-in-law had tried to eat what she could after being left alone and then later tried to charge me for it. But my mother-in-law's request was turned down by the restaurant staff, who were already against her because of the prior ruckus. They thought I would leave in rage and never come back to pay. It was then advised that my mother-in-law pay by card. But she didn't have a credit card and hadn't brought enough cash to cover everyone's meals. So she ignored all of her calls. Last-ditch effort to get in touch with other family members to help pay for it. But nobody answered, enraged that she ruined pricey flower pots and vases at the restaurant in the process. Eatery called the police as a result of this pandemonium, calmed down by the responding officers. But she steadfastly denied any wrongdoing. A problematic patron. The restaurant requested assistance in escorting her home. Husband and I went back to the restaurant, feeling bad for turning off a police call. Mother-in-law was being calmed down by the cops when we arrived. Soon as she saw me, lifting her gaze and crossing her arms. Pay the bill. Which is why this happened. Mother is instinctive, isn't it? The cops there. I was really taken aback when my mother-in-law said something that sounded nearly menacing. Made it plain that they would either arrest her for eating and running or take her to her in-laws' house in a patrol car if no one took her home. Takes. Accept accountability. Voice was icy and determined as I spoke. Statements caused my mother-in-law's eyes to widen in surprise. Express something so icy? Simply make a payment. She begged that having a family member arrested is unlucky. I don't give a damn. I'm not related. Additionally, I don't want to be around someone who is making a scene and talking crazily. I answered, trying to get out of the restaurant so the cops could take care of the matter. But my spouse, who had said nothing at all, gave me a scowl. I recognize how horrible what was said and done to Maya was. However, is it a serious enough offense to warrant an arrest? In defense of his mother, he asked, "You're not getting it, because she ate, ran, and made a scene at the restaurant. She is in problems with the police. I am not involved in it. Or are you implying that Despite the fact that I didn't eat, I am to blame for not covering the cost of 6 people's meals? I shot back. My spouse fell silent, but he continued walking past me in the direction of the restaurant employees and the cops. I was aware of his intentions. I called out to his backing as I expected him to do so. We're divorcing if you're going to cover her supper and give them money. Consider that. Without answering my question, my spouse quietly removed his wallet. With a groan, I left the restaurant and headed home along the same route. As I prepared to depart, I began packing my necessities. My hubby came back just before the date was modified. Mom won't be arrested. It appears that she was truly at fault. However, the restaurant vowed that she would never return and stated they would forgive her if I paid them. My brothers came to help because I didn't have nearly enough money. "Oh, I'm so tired," he said in a tired voice. He seemed irritated by my lack of response and kept talking endlessly about what had transpired after I had left. Then he saw my packed suitcases and came up to me. "These bags, please, I'm getting ready to move out. Divorce you if you stood up for her." Claim not to have heard me. "Will you?" Solid response. He gazed down at me, looked up and started to shout. "Happening today? Day, you've been behaving oddly. I get it, but why must we seek a divorce? Informed you that I'm being harassed. But despite the facts and testimonies of others, you continue to pick your mother, who nearly got arrested, over me. Does my desire to divorce someone like that seem odd? I'm done." Even though my husband kept saying different things, they all went in one ear and out the other. I made plans to get a divorce and got ready to leave the house. I went right away to pick up the divorce papers the following morning. My spouse fussed about not wanting a divorce when I signed and gave them to him. However, he reluctantly signed when I mentioned bringing in a lawyer, and I promptly turned in the documents. I could at last go back to being a stranger. Following that, my spouse left the house to live with his parents. He couldn't do the housekeeping himself. Apparently, because he had depended on me for the majority of it, the house consequently descended into chaos. He chose to move back in with his parents after terminating the apartment lease because he didn't like the filthy dwelling. Furthermore, the results for the oldest and third sons were comparable. Each of my husband's brothers got into a heated argument with their wives on the day he phoned them to assist with the settlement. The brothers used their resources to help their mother without asking the spouses, who objected that they didn't want to pay for something that was their mother's fault. Furthermore, the brothers took the mother-in-law's advice to heart. Fearing that their irrational wives would result in their incarceration, they were instantly faced with the possibility of divorce after their love cooled at the sight of them disparagingly. Refusing to do any housekeeping, they both went back to their parents' houses. Ultimately, the mother-in-law went back to the in-laws' home with her 3 impressionable brothers. Because of this circumstance, the neighbors began to make fun of them and spread the rumor that all of the brothers had been dumped by their wives. Mother-in-law vehemently defended her sons and blamed us wives for their shortcomings, dismissing these claims as untrue. After hearing the narrative, the spouses nodded smugly, certain that it was the correct thing to divorce them. But I was still on good terms with my neighbors, and no one took these stories seriously. They kept their distance and silently laughed at the mother-in-law because they knew she was a horrible lady. The husbands earned a reputation in the community as mama's boys who stood up for their mother rather than their wives, while the mother-in-law was viewed as a failing mother who was unable to teach her sons. The husbands and mother-in-law made frantic attempts to get in touch with me, but I had relocated to a new home and updated all of my contact details. They eventually failed to locate us and continued to whine all their lives. My days have gotten more pleasant now that I'm not interacting with my mother-in-law and the others. Making new friends has been amazing, and it's a huge relief to not have to deal with her anymore. In reality, because we had similar complaints about the mother-in-law, I became close to the ex-wives of the eldest and third sons during the divorce process. These days, we like to shop on the weekends and frequently eat out. I might even have to thank my ex-husband for providing me with such amazing friends. We're all going to a new cafe the day after tomorrow. We are free to do as we like from now on. Although it may seem apparent, it feels more freeing than ever. I truly appreciate the friendships I've made. But I want to live my own life without interacting with such poisonous people. If it weren't for them, I think I would still be living alone. They are the main reason I can live a happy life and am no longer lonely. I sincerely appreciate it and hope that our relationship lasts a lifetime.